Hi, and welcome to the Grace Cycle Show. I'm your host, Karen Dittman, and my heart for this show is to help you stop striving and struggling in life and instead find a better way to grow closer to God through His grace. You don't have to try harder, you just need to try different. Because sometimes life feels like a crazy hamster wheel, and you'd love to get off, you'd love to have it stop, but it just won't. That's why I created my quiz, How Fast is Your Hamster Wheel Spinning? You can take it at hamster.onefit-wellness.com. I'll put the link in the show notes for you. And this quiz will help you to discover what's spinning your hamster wheel, how that's impacting you, and what you might be able to do to help slow it down. So, in today's episode, I have an interview with Pastor Jenn Dafoe Turner, who is one of the publishers with my publishing company, Abundance Books. Jenn Dafoe Turner is a multifaceted life coach who has dedicated her life to inspiring and guiding others on their journey. As an experienced writer and speaker, she harnesses her unique voice and perspective to create a transformative coaching experience. Jenn brings an eclectic blend of spiritual coaching, writing guidance, speaking coaching, and sobriety coaching to provide a holistic approach to personal growth. Her profound understanding of human potential allows her to empower her clients, enabling them to unlock their true capabilities as writers and speakers. Whether it's a budding author struggling with writer's block or an ambitious speaker aiming to captivate an audience, Jenn's coaching methods are designed to turn potential into prowess. So I invite you today to enjoy my conversation with Jenn Dafoe Turner. Jenn, welcome to the Grace Cycle Show. I'm so glad to have you join me today.
It is great to be here, Karen. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Jenn, I will just let you go ahead and tell us your story of how you saw God overcome something impossible by His grace.
So I received a phone call from my district superintendent. It was a Tuesday that he called and asked if he could meet with me the next morning. And so I had said, of course, I'll meet. And when him and the district secretary came in, we had a conversation where I was asked to resign from my position as pastor.
Mm.
It was devastating. It was like the world just fell out from underneath of me. The church where I was pastoring was our home church. It didn't matter where we went in the world, this was our home church. And so I felt in that moment like I, where do I go? What do I do? It can't be happening. All the things, all the thoughts that you have in the moment. And later that night I was sleeping and the Lord woke me up out of a dead sleep and he said, Jenn, you need to trust the process. And I thought about that, the process. And what did that mean? I thought it meant the legal process. So I actually not hired, but I went to seek counsel from a lawyer. And the lawyer was very, very happy because it was like an open and shut case. That's how much proof there was of spiritual abuse on my side. And when I got out to the car, I heard the Lord say, Jenn, this is not the process. And so I actually became very bitter. I let that settle in and take root, not understanding fully what was going on in my world. I was told that I didn't do anything wrong, but yet still I couldn't stay and pastor. So there was such a confusion that was happening. I didn't know where to turn or what to do. And so for probably a good, I don't know, 6 months, I worked from my bed and I hardly ever got out of it. And that's where the Lord met me and held me and even encouraged me and lured me out of that space through this work that I get to do now. And I had no idea what was happening. But I had went to the Well conference and I was there with my business partner, and one of my friends had passed away and I was leaving early to go to her funeral. And the Lord kept prompting me to go in to pray with the chaplain. And I kept putting him off, saying, no, I don't want, I didn't come here to do any of that. And so finally I said, okay, if I'm walking by and he's in the room and he's all alone, I will go in there before I leave and ask for prayer. So lo and behold, you know how God always answers those fleeces. I'm walking by, and there the chaplain is sitting alone, nobody else in the room, and the door open. So I went in and I sat down, and he said to me, "So what brings you in here today?" And I just let him have it, lock, stock, and barrel. And he said to me, "Wow, you're really bitter. You're really carrying a lot of bitterness." And that was the first time I was able to actually put into words what I was feeling and what I was harboring. And so he gave me this tool to use. He said, I want you to think of yourself like a conduit. And every time you see the people that have hurt you or offended you, I want you to think of your body as the conduit of God's forgiveness. And the only thing that can flow out of you is God's forgiveness. And so if your stomach is the fire hydrant of God's forgiveness and they're coming at you, you know, I want you to visualize knocking them over with God's forgiveness. Well, I could do that, you know, because in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I could do that because they're going to hurt when they fall. But what started happening was my heart started to soften. And pretty soon I was no longer in that state of bitter anger, and I was able to start releasing emotion. A few months after that, I was at the Speak Up conference. And while I was there, I mean, the Lord was just all over that place. Have you ever been to a Speak Up conference?
I went to the last one this past summer. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
yes, I know. I know what you're
yeah,
talking about.
yeah, the Lord was just all over that place. And so that night, Debbie Alsdorf had shared a message. My daughter-in-law was with me at that Speak Up conference. And as we were worshiping, we were in the heavenlies, out of the heavenlies, and my eyes were closed. And the Lord said to me, Jen, open your eyes. And so I opened my eyes. He said, now look around. And so I look around and I see these women sitting beside me, Carol Kent and Bonnie Emery and Debbie Alsdorf, and you know, lots of names. And he said, Jen, I needed to separate you because these women are going to help take you where I want you to go.
Mm.
And that was the process God was talking about. Processing or transitioning from pulpit ministry to speaking and teaching and writing and sharing and building community in a different way, still building for his kingdom, but still community in a different way. And so right now, I get to pastor a bunch of creative men and women who want to build the kingdom. And that to me is life giving and life altering.
Hmm. What an amazing story, Jen. And I am just thinking about how that first day when the district superintendent said, no, you don't get to be a pastor anymore. How that hit right at your identity. Like,
Mm,
but that's who I am. I'm a pastor. And
mhm.
that pain. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Like something has just been ripped away from me. That's who I am. You can't take away who
Yeah,
I am.
yeah. It 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 has been a journey in understanding that yes, there is a level of proving the fruit of the call, but at the same time recognizing that the call comes from God, not man,
Hmm.
and that regardless of what man says, following after that call is of utmost importance. And so, like I shared, I might not preach from behind a pulpit in a regular church, but I have a greater impact now than what I ever had as a pastor. And I think that's the point that God wanted to make in my life. I was setting my sights here,
Hmm.
thinking, God is going to use me here because I've always been called, always known I was called, and understanding that called meant pastoral ministry and nothing outside of that. But there's so much outside of pastoral
Hmm.
ministry, and there's so many other things to do in God's kingdom when you're called, even when you're called to speak.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's so easy for us to say, but this is my calling. This is what I have to do. But then really God's a lot more creative than we are, isn't he? I mean, he made the whole universe. So.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I often think of there's a meme on Facebook where Jesus is asking the little girl for her teddy bear, and the teddy bear is old and ragged, and it's missing an eye, and she doesn't want to give up that teddy bear. But what she doesn't see is the big one behind his back with the big red bow on it, and it's all shiny and new. And I think for me anyways, that's what I was doing. I was holding on to that pulpit ministry, that pulpit pastoral view of myself and saying, no, this is what God has called me to, because this is the view of what a pastor looks like in my mind.
Mhm.
And so releasing that view and embracing God's view of what a pastor looks like is completely different.
That's true. That's true. And I'm also aware that you needed that season of grief because
Yeah.
something that you loved, something that you saw as a part of you was taken away. And,
Yeah.
bitterness is natural and a normal emotion, and getting stuck there, not healthy, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah. And I was grieving, I was grieving a lot. And so the church that I pastored, I actually got saved in. My husband went to caravans there as a young child. All of our children were dedicated in that church. We got married in that church. I preached my first sermon in that church, did my first wedding in the church, my first funeral in that church.
Mm,
And so I was grieving not just the loss of the church and the identity, but I was grieving relationships that were no more, relationships that had been in my life for years. And I mean, over 20 years, these people had been in my life. And to be at this place now, I look back and think, yeah, there was a lot of grief going on there. There was a lot of severing and a lot of stripping that God was doing, not only in my life, but I'm sure in their lives as well,
right.
you
Yeah.
know? And so there's a lot of grief. And if I'm being honest, there are still times when that grief crops up and I'm sad.
Mhm.
When I see the Lord gave us a vision to start the Freedom Center. And so when I see things still happening to move that along, I am so proud and I'm so excited. But at the same time, there's a part of me that says, I should be there. That's my baby.
Right.
But at the same time, it's not mine, it's the Lord's. So understanding the grief process and how it comes in waves. It's not a linear thing like people
Right.
think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Grief is so messy. When my mom passed away, and this has been 16 years, 15 years, I thought, okay, well, first I'm going to be angry and then I'm going to bargain and then I'm going to, and it's like, no, I just like 1 minute I'm sad and the next minute I'm like, God, you've got to have a good purpose for this happening. And the next minute I'm angry. And then the next minute I'm okay with it. And it just, and all at once too. And then it's just exhausting. So I'm not
Yeah.
surprised you spent 6 months in bed because it's also exhausting
Yeah.
physically and emotionally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was ready. I was ready for that. And that lament, that rest, that period of sorrow and grief. The pandemic really didn't help the situation either,
Mm-mm.
It didn't help anybody's situation, let's be honest. So there's so many things, but God, right? But
Yes.
God. And I'm so thankful to be able to live in this place of grace, growing in the word, relying on God,
Mhm.
acting with compassion and claiming God's promises and embracing and expecting that God is going to show up in my circumstances. Living from that place of grace has really been instrumental in healing and moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Really, we do need to lean on his grace. I wrote in my book, Thriving in Grace, that grace isn't just his gift of salvation, it is his power at work in the world. And it doesn't stop when we say, okay, I'll follow you. He's got more
Yeah.
grace. In fact, I love there's a verse that says, when we see him face to face, there's even more grace for us then. Wow, what an
Mm.
amazing truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is, I don't think we have any idea what we're in for. First Corinthians in the love chapter, it says at the end, prophecy will cease and speaking in tongues will cease, and all of that will cease because we will know fully as we are fully known. And that to me, like you said, that just boggles my mind. Like, what do you mean? And what, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We try to get our theology straight and fit God in our little boxes. And then he, I think, is committed to blowing our boxes open and showing us, nope, you're not going to fit me in there.
Yeah, yeah. He
Yeah.
definitely he definitely can't be boxed in, that's for sure.
Mm-mm. No, definitely
Yeah.
can't. Yeah. Yeah. And so now just want to come back to where you are now, and as an abundance books author, I am on the receiving end of your pastoral care and your love, and I've seen that. Maybe speak a little bit more about how you are seeing that God has given you a whole new way to be a pastor.
Mm. You know, with my with my role in abundance books and my interactions with the authors, every time we gather, it is an opportunity to enter heaven's throne room. And we are not just there to live in a silo, but to build authentic community for people who maybe think outside of the box, because that's what creatives do. We think outside of the box. And a lot of times people don't understand us because of that outside of the box thinking. And so just creating space for people to be who God created them to be and embracing them for who they are. And not that I didn't do that in the church, but when you're ministering in the church, a lot of times people walk in the door and the mask comes on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to minister to people when they live behind that mask and they don't want to take that mask off. The hardest thing to change is a closed mind, right?
Right.
And the hardest thing to walk somebody towards healing is somebody who's masked up and said, no, I don't have a problem.
Right.
And so being in the rooms with the authors, seeing their pain, letting them bring their pain, letting them bring their cares, their concerns, all of it, their honesty, even when they're not happy with us, bring it. Let's talk it out. Let's work it through. And that has been amazing to see,
Mm-hmm.
amazing to watch, and amazing for others to just. I've had people say to me, I've never said no before. You're the first person I've ever said no to. And
Mm.
it's because you gave me permission.
Yeah.
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 People feel like they need permission to say no. And
Right.
so we try to create a space where it's okay to do exactly what God has called you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if that means you say no to this so you can say yes to this, yay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and because when you succeed, Karen, that's when Abundance Book succeeds. That's when God is glorified and God is honored. It's not about me, I can talk till I'm blue in the face. Most pastors can.
Yeah.
But are we honoring God? And so it's also about elevating other people in the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Your voice and your story matters just as much as mine. And when we each share our stories, it gives other people permission to share theirs. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but I certainly am seeing so such different fruit than in pastoral ministry.
I think you did answer my question. And as you were talking about, the mask versus being unmasked, and you've written books, and I'm writing my second full-length book. And when I'm writing, and I'm not the only one. I've heard other people say similar things. God works on me in what I am writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't stay hidden. I need that community. I need that space where I can say, my current novel is a woman, a mom who is dealing with her life by being a controller. Well, guess what God's working on in my life right now? You can't be in control of everyone and everything. Like, really, God? Do we
Yeah,
have to go there? When I wrote
yeah.
Thriving in Grace, it took 3.5 years. And part of that was he needed to teach me to live in his grace and to live
Mhm,
out what I teach in that book. Um,
mhm.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I actually found that as a pastor as well.
Mhm.
Whenever I was writing sermons, and I mean I wrote them weekly,
Right.
whatever I was preaching about, God was also working in me on. I always had a fresh testimony. There was always something new that God was doing in my life because I was allowing the word to be alive and active. And that's how we do it, right? If we get
Yeah.
into the word, it's alive, it's active, it convicts, it encourages. It's like that double-edged sword, like it says it is. In
Hmm.
1 minute, it can encourage your soul and bless your socks off. And then in the next minute, it can have you on your knees repenting because it reveals something about myself that I've done against God that I now need to seek his forgiveness for.
Right.
So it is powerful. And to see that at work in people's lives. And I think that's why writers, when they are called to like nonfiction, even fiction writing, where they're dealing with these hard issues, I think that's why God doesn't want us to be hidden because we're okay with being vulnerable for him,
Hmm.
and saying, okay, God, work on me, you
Right.
know, be that transformational piece in my life so I can glorify you even more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Good books come out of real life. They don't just come out of our heads, right? So, Jen, you have a book that just came out. Can you tell us something about your book?
I can. Fear, Faith, and Freedom is my journey of heathenness to holiness. It's all the things that the world said was good for me. And when I became a Christian, so I'm a first generation Christian. So when I became a Christian, the Lord said, Jen, that's probably not a good idea for you to do, like drinking and drugging and smoking, all the things. And so this is my story of how the Lord met me in specific moments of growth. It is a devotional journal type story, so it's not meant to sit and read all at once. It is meant to sit and chew on it and chew on the word of God and what does it mean for you and how does this resonate with you and where does God want you to maybe apply this truth in your life?
It's great. And I've started reading that actually in my own devotional time, finding it very encouraging and of course the glimpses into your life, but also just where God meets me right there. So, thank you for putting that out there, Jen, and sharing your story.
Thank you. I'm glad that it is speaking to you. Not the book, but God Himself is speaking to you through it. That's the that's the whole purpose of writing it. What does God want to do in you? And when we share our stories, it gives other people permission to share theirs, and even some to look at theirs for the very first time and say, yeah, that is something that I have struggled with, but have never wanted to say anything about that.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for giving people the freedom to talk about these things. Well, you have just had God work in your life in so many ways. So, just this one story, this one instance, I think is going to be such an encouragement to many people. If
Thank you.
you could just offer us one big takeaway, one thing that you want people to remember from our conversation, what would that be?
I think it would be to trust the process that God has you in.
Mm.
He's not going to let you down. God is for you, He is not against you. And remembering that when it feels like the world is falling apart and God doesn't seem close and all of that, just trust the process because God is for you. He is not against you, and He is working all things out for your good and for His glory.
Mm. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, you're
Well,
welcome.
if anybody wants to get in touch with you, or if somebody has an idea for a book in their head and want to reach out to you, how could people get in touch with you or get a hold of your new book?
Well, that's a great question. If they go to www.abundance-books.com, they will be able to get in touch with me there if they have an idea for a book that they're thinking of writing, or maybe they're even interested in, well, I have a story, but I'm not sure. I think I might like to write it. Reach out because we do have the academy that where we offer people to go from that space of I have an idea, but I'm not sure, right through to published manuscript and marketing afterwards. So yeah, reach out. I'd love to talk to you, and you can get my information right from that website.
Great. And I know the book catalog for Abundance Books is on that website too. And so we can find your
Yes.
book there. So
Yes.
thank you so much, Jen, for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It has
So
been a blessing.
good. I'm glad. Well, I'm blessed too, and others will be also. So thank you.
Thank you.
What an amazing and powerful story Jen shared with me. And I hope that it encourages you to trust the process. Trust God in whatever you are going through because He's not letting you down. He's not forgetting about you. He hasn't let go of you. You could get Jen's book again at abundancebooks.com. And I will put that link in our show notes so you can look for it. Fear, Faith, and Freedom. So, again, remember, maybe you're in a place where you'd love to find freedom. You'd love to learn how to trust God in what you're going through and trust the process, but you feel stuck. And I know that I find often when I am on that crazy hamster wheel of my life, I can't see what needs to change sometimes because I'm running and I'm spinning. And if you're feeling this, and if you're feeling like you're stuck on the hamster wheel, maybe what you need to do to get clear yourself is to take the quiz, How Fast is Your Hamster Wheel Spinning? Again, it's short. It'll only take you about 50 seconds. It's at hamster.onefit-wellness.com or click on the link in the show notes. And this quiz and its results will help you to figure out your next steps to thrive by living in grace. So that's it for today. Would you take a second to subscribe to the show so you're notified when future episodes come out? And also, it would mean the world to me if you would rate or review the show, and this helps more people to find out about it. So until next time, get curious, stay connected, and live in grace.